Thank you for tuning into our podcast. We are coming to you from Chicopee, Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining me is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Cullen. He offers both public and private tours, as well as presentations of the local canal systems, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks and streets in Holyoke, South Hadley, and Chicopee, Mass. Now you actually lead these tours and give these presentations yourself, is that correct?
Yes, and this is across the street from the location where we started the first and second level canal tour.
Tell us of the origins of the Massasoit.
Okay, the Massasoit, of course, named after an Indian, the Massasoit Paper Company started off in 1873, and it was always, for its history, a fine or extra fine paper company. That means very, very nice paper to write on, even down to extremely thin paper, in order for just to get people to have nice stationery to write good letters to their friends and relatives. Now, this was a company that needed a mill, and they asked the Newton brothers, "Can you build us a mill?" Especially Daniel Newton, and he built up this mill. And the mill itself is mostly still there. Its main body, which is 3 floors high, is still apparent, going in the direction east to west. It used to have 2 side pieces going off to the south, off this main body, and they were both engine rooms, using the water from the first level canal as it went down the second level canal. It would put it over the turbines. So there are 2 engine rooms, and those aren't there anymore. But the main body of where most of it was made is still around. Now, the first owner was Edward Rogers, who lived in Springfield, and he just wanted to make these beautiful paper for people, and it turned out to be a great success. Now, you can see that the Newton brothers, Daniel and John, they both made a great building that still is there even 150 years later, and this is the 150th anniversary this year of 2023. It was made in 1873. For 150 years it stood, and it still basically still stands in great shape. So along the way today we're going to talk about production at the mill, and also what became of the mill, and then what the future should hold for itself.
And how was production handled at this mill?
Okay, so if you look at the way the setup goes, I told you about the 2 buildings not there that went off to the south, or as you face from the canal inwards to the Massasoit, were off to the right-hand side. Now, those 2 engine rooms are gone. There also used to be a somewhat smaller room off the front, and that was where a lot of processing did, especially chemical processing of the paper. But the main body of the mill is still there, and the way the production happened was in two different ways, because the mill had a eastern part and a western part, and they weren't separated by a wall, but all the production happened mainly in this building here. So I'll tell you what they did, and this is somewhat close to what happens in other paper mills. So the rag room was on the 3rd and 4th floor of the western part, and the rags room was where the people picked through cotton rags to get products ready. Now, this fine paper was made out of cotton. Almost all fine paper was made out of cotton. And then as you went downwards, you met the engine room, and then the drainage. This is where they're making the paper stretch out over the machines, and they're trying to get it drier and drier along the way. Okay, now what they do is they'd bring it back up to the 4th floor of the eastern side. So I've never seen a paper mill where drastic changes from one side to the next. And in that eastern side on the 4th floor, that was a drying room. Now they already drained some of the water out of the pulp, and this is where it's been pressed down, and which means calendared to the right dimensions, and they're just drying the paper out. Now they're going to start production over again. So they lifted it up once again, and then the next floor down, they put the lines in the paper, or they put the engraving in the paper. That's the 3rd floor. Then they bring it down to the second floor, and this is where the finishing off of the paper is, where they might put in, using dandy rules, put in the watermark, or they could put in the cuts that they're going to use. They can put in any fancy material, any dye that you can use. And then they bring it down to the first floor, and that's where the administration is, and also where their storehouse is, where they can either sell to individuals or sell wholesale to big producers. Now remember that had these side branches, machine rooms, and in those, that's where a lot of the pulping took place of the cotton and the bleaching. All right, and those are sadly gone. So that's the production inside the Massasoit.
And quickly, before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to find out more information or sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there he has both videos of the various stops along each tour and also past and present photos of the historical sites throughout as well. And if you're interested in setting up a private tour, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And they are perfect for fun and educational outdoor activities for the whole family or for your group parties, especially those at special occasions and get-togethers. And they are also good just for getting out for the day. So, getting back to our interview, what became of this mill?
Okay, so it existed from 1873 until the 1920s, and then business started going downhill, and they changed their system, and they were bought out. In fact, they were bought out by the Holyoke Water Power Company, and they changed it into paper use, but their own paper use, which were manufactured. And it stayed pretty much the same in the way that it was producing items. It still had those three side rooms, which made power, which had a beater and big machinery. But the main body of the mill also stayed the same, but it just had a different owner. One thing they did was they wanted to expand their mill, and it expanded it with both a walkway and with a ground floor entrance way to the Baby Holbrook paper mill that was very close by. I don't know why they did it. Maybe they were selling pieces of the plant off to small-time paper makers. It was very strange, but they continued to be the owners for over 30 years. And in general, they didn't change much around. So those three small buildings weren't taken down to sometime in the late 60s. And otherwise, that's it.
And what does its future hold?
Okay, now it's still a beautiful mill, and it's gorgeously made by Daniel Newton, and it's being preserved. And Holyoke told the owners that they need to put a new roof on there, and they spent $1 million putting a brand new shingle roof over that thing. So they mean business. They really want to stay and sell it out to someone. Now, Holyoke has been trending in the direction of retail and educational uses for most of its old buildings. Would that keep going? Yes. It's right behind the Warrigon, which the Warrigon has many spaces that have been changed to retail, including Fame and the Plan and the Blue Door. But it's also close to the marijuana outlet, which the Baby Holbrook has become. Maybe become one of those. In the sandwich in between the Merrick 3 thread mill, which is becoming a storage area. So hopefully something positive can happen with the Massasoit very quickly. Any ownership is good because anyone in there is going to make sure that it's structurally sound and being used, and that's always a good sign for the future because if no one's there, will go to rot. They're not looking out for problems, and someday it'll collapse. So hopefully the Massasoit will get a good upper hand like all of his neighbors have gotten good things happen to it.
So, thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours. And I want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And you can tune into a large selection of our other podcasts and much more on his website. Again, that's holyokecanaltour.org. And again, you can email him directly for private tours or find out more information at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And be sure to keep an eye out for its upcoming 2024 season tours and more as they become available. Thank you for tuning in.